Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. Today, I am honored to have John.malott on. John has an absolutely fascinating story, and you're going to get the chance to hear that today. What I will say about him is John's probably one of the best examples of defying odds. He has every excuse as to why he shouldn't be successful, and yet overcame those, and today runs a very fascinating and great and large company. The two of the things that really stuck out to me as I've gotten to know John and research him, one is I respect the heck out of the fact that he wants to make other people just as successful as he's had the opportunity to become. And secondly, he is very dedicated to being the best version of John that he can be. And a phrase that he likes to live by, which I think after you listen to this, you will want to implement this in your life, as well as a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And so, John, thanks so much for being on.
Man, it's my pleasure. We finally connect. I'm super excited to be on here and love what you do. Yeah, man, it's good to be here. Hopefully, I don't scare your audience off, man. After they hear my story, they're like, "Oh no, why is this guy on here?"
Oh, they're going to learn a lot of reasons why you're on here. Yeah,
it's funny that you say that because I got a tattoo right here. A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So I got it on me, man. It is something that I live by because I was not that guy at one point. So everything I do now is about, legacy. It's about, the next generation, the next level, the people that are going to benefit, trying to leave the world a better place than when I found it.
Absolutely. Well, it's been fun to see your story play out, and then it'll be fun to do this again in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and to see all the growth and continued development that happens thereafter.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just getting warmed up, man. I'm in the second half, but I feel like I got a few things figured out. I don't have a lot figured out, but I've got a few things figured out now that I didn't have before, and now we're starting to build off of that foundation. So, I believe the next 5 years, I always say, look, the next year is the best year. The next day is my best day. My next work is my best work. So, we're definitely moving in the right direction.
I love it. I agree with you 100%. So talking about foundation though, John, just kicking off right into it, growing up, if a person saw the companies you run today, one person would probably assume that, oh, you probably grew up in an entrepreneurial household, you took business classes and all these things, but talk a little bit about being 15 years old and, maybe learning a hard life lesson early on in life.
You did do your homework, bro. I see it. I see it. You already got me. You threw me in the deep end already. Yeah, man. At 15 years old, I had my first felony arrest. I had robbed a movie theater at gunpoint. Man, I didn't go in there with the intention to rob it. So I say it was their fault they got robbed. I was doing what I did best as a young punk. I was in there with a couple of my buddies and we were being disruptive. They came and asked us to leave. What they didn't realize that in the back of my Louisville starter jacket that I wore represented the colors of our neighborhood. I had sewed a towel in the back of it. And in there, I kept a .44 Magnum. The gun was bigger than me, at 15 years old.
Right.
And I'll never forget the guy came up and he said, okay, you guys have to leave. You're disrupting the movie theater. And I said, well, I'll leave if you give me my money back. And he said, read the back of your ticket stub. It says no refunds. I said, well, then give me everybody's money back. And of course, funny today, not so funny then. That led to incarceration as a juvenile. And it was the beginning of a cycle, beginning of this cycle that was very difficult to get out. Once you get caught up in that legal system, it's a major challenge. But it's all I knew. It's all we knew in that neighborhood anyways. And when I was finally released, this, what we now know today as the crack epidemic was moving pretty rapidly through our neighborhood. And that was my first attempt at being an entrepreneur, but I clearly didn't get the memo, don't get high on your own supply. And that led to a heart attack at 17 years old. And I was just in self-destruction mode, apparently. I wasn't very bright. And I just kept going from one bad thing to the next bad thing, and with a lot of momentum and enthusiasm. I was failing forward very rapidly. But that led me into a drug rehabilitation program. and I was locked in there because of some other circumstances around it. But that was really the biggest blessing. Me having a heart attack at 17 turned out to be a major blessing in my life.
Yeah. And so what I want you to just spend a minute talking about is, the opportunity to meet Dave and, him giving you a book, and I want you to also talk about your willingness to read it, right? Because let's just call a spade here. If you drop out of school and you're into, drugs and gang things, it's like, well, what most people aren't reading books like How to Win Friends and Influence People. So talk a little bit about, the impact Dave had on you and why you were even open to reading that book.
Yeah, man. So Dave was a former outlaw motorcycle gang member who had turned his life around, and he was now a counselor in this drug rehabilitation program. And Dave was the first guy that I respected because he'd been where we've been. A lot of people that came into my life were always like talking down to me, telling me I'm a loser, I'm no good, and all this stuff. And like, yeah, whatever. It didn't have any impact on me. But Dave was the first guy. He really held the mirror up to my face and said, because like everybody else, I was really good at blaming. I blamed. I dropped out of high school because of the teachers. I had legal problems because of the police. The list goes on and on. It was everybody else's fault but mine. Dave put the mirror in front of my face. He's like, no, man, this is you 100%. You made an appointment to be here. This is all you. And he said, that's the bad news. But then, of course, the good news is you can make a new appointment. And that's where things began, because Dave was the first guy who I really felt like he saw more of me than I saw in myself. Sounds kind of cliche, but it really was. And he turned me on to personal development. He gave me that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that was the beginning. I didn't even know this stuff existed. Yeah. I didn't know you could think and grow rich. I didn't know that you could will things into your life through, all these, and at first it didn't seem normal to me. It seemed corny. It seemed weird. I'm like, how is this going to work? But those seeds got planted. And later on, I wrote a book with Les Brown, the great motivational speaker, called The Power of One. And Les, he said that once a seed is planted in your mind, it can never go back to its original dimensions. And that's what kind of happened is from that first book, the seed was planted. He kept telling me business was my way out. Business was my way out. I wasn't going to be a professional athlete. Yep. I had a lot of other issues that were going to prevent me from probably getting the good job that most people were going for. So he really was like, look, man, entrepreneurship, that's where you want to go. And it didn't make sense to me at first, but slowly that seed started to grow and grow and grow. And I realized at one point that was going to be my only shot. If anything was going to happen for me, either bum or entrepreneur. I already did bum. Yeah. I was ready for something new, and entrepreneur seemed the logical progression for me. But I wish I could say it happened fast, because it did not happen fast, man. I was so rough and just a complete mess. But Dave was really one of those early redefining moments in my life, and one of the first real mentors that I had that helped to shape my direction and change my direction.
Absolutely. And I think, mentorship is so important, but I think something that you pointed out there is equally as important. And that's finding someone that can see something more in you than maybe what you see in yourself right then and there. Right. Because I'm sure that would have been an easy spot for you to be like, dude, you're crazy, right? Like, I don't agree with you, but to have someone actually vocalize that. And even if it doesn't click right away, just to think, hey, if they can see it, like maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of things that were happening at that same time. I really was, when I was going through this whole drug thing, and I was resigned to being done with life. My life had sucked. I had destroyed all the relationships around me. Mm-hmm. I apologize. My phone was ringing. I had destroyed all the relationships around me. I just was a mess. I didn't have anything. I had nothing left. And I just was resigned to like, okay, man, I'm done. I'm ready to roll. But when I got into that drug rehab and I started to get cleaned up, I was now sober. I was thinking differently. It was time. I was like, I would like to change. If there's a possibility, if there's a way, I would like to change. When you look back, my sister died from a heroin overdose at 21 years old. My brother's been in and out of prison his entire life. So you got three people, similar background, similar household. One makes it. I hate to say made it, but one changed courses, went in a different direction. And why didn't the other two? I think all these things kind of came together at the right time, and I was just ready. And again, it didn't happen overnight. It was a painful experience,
Yeah.
that I had to go through to finally where now I was respectable, and now I had relationships that were building again. And I learned about integrity. I learned about character. I learned all these things through mentors and through books. And I realized that because in the neighborhood I grew up in, integrity and character wasn't a big part of how you came up.
Yeah.
So you came up by taking advantage of people. It was a whole different mentality. I caught on very early on that the great business people, the ones that are respectable, that will have great legacies, they had integrity, they had character. So those are big principles. I very rarely talk about that, but that's where it shaped me. Where you'll be hard pressed to find someone that said John.malott screwed them. John.malott, took advantage of them. That's just not the way we roll. And I believe it's the reason why we've had so much momentum over the last years.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I think is worth highlighting there, when you talk about how can three people with similar, ways they're raised, similar life situations end up in different paths. I think that just speaks to, one, your willingness to change, but two, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, and that's like your ability to take ownership, right? I think sometimes people stay on the same path because they don't want to take ownership, and to switch lanes, switch paths. You have to at some point acknowledge, like, all right, this isn't happening to me, it's for me, and now I want to switch that.
Well, you just said it isn't happening to me. I love that because that's prior to that, everything was happening to me. Everybody was against me. It was all, and here I am supposed to be this gangster, tough guy, and I'm really a whiny little baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just, I see a lot of tough guys that really are just whiny babies. They're all constantly making excuses, constantly blaming. It just, the biggest thing that happened to me was finally taking responsibility. It's funny because now, I learned later on, I had, great mentors, Paul J. Meyer, billionaire Paul J. Meyer, Jim Rohn, some incredible people that came in my life. And every single time the theme became a responsibility and taking responsibility. Like Jim Rohn and Paul J. Meyer used to talk about taking responsibility for things that for sure had nothing to do with them, but just the fact that you had the big enough shoulders and were man enough to say, look, I'll take it. Yep. You don't want it. You're not going to, I'll take it. And that alone, I saw these great men become even greater. I saw them, create massive fortunes just around something as simple as taking responsibility for everything. John, you mean everything? Yeah, I mean everything. They took responsibility for everything. If it was in their vicinity, they said, give it to me. I'll figure it out. We'll make it work and we'll roll forward. So that's a big one, man. And people, I feel like we have, we're shunning responsibility more and more. We're pushing it off to other people. We're pointing fingers. You see it, man. The media helps perpetuate a lot of this stuff. It maybe is not as bad as it seems or appears, but it appears to me we're heading maybe in the wrong direction. We're off track slightly, and hopefully we'll get back on track.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so at 24, you have a moment that really sticks out to you as, once again, 17, you get introduced to Dave, you start making these transitions, but 24 is like that moment where, all right, I really have to make this change.
Yeah, man, I always say I had one foot in the hood, one foot in a book. I had one foot creating havoc. I had another foot trying to find peace. It was contradictory. It wasn't working very well. But yeah, at 24, it was my final felony arrest, and sitting on the bullpen floor of the Milwaukee County Jail, July 4th, 1993, busy place around the holidays.
Yeah.
There were no seats left. That's why I was sitting on the floor. But for 4 days, I sat there waiting. If you know how the system works, waiting to get into a courtroom just to get out of this damn bullpen that just was miserable. I had stitches in my head because of an altercation with the police prior to getting in there. It was just a miserable experience. But sitting on that floor, two things happened. When I was being arrested, when I was being let out of my home, this time it was a little different because I have a daughter. My daughter, Lauren, who was 2 years old at the time, or around 2. I'll never forget, as I was being let out the home, she's freaking out, screaming, crying. She doesn't know exactly what's going on. She just knows there's police all inside the house. It's in disarray. Right. I'm yelling, cussing. I'm being, what I do. And as I'm being let out, I look back, and Lauren and I eyes caught. It couldn't have been more than a couple seconds, but it seemed like a really, really long time.
Yeah.
So sitting on that bullpen floor, all that kept playing in my mind for 4 days was Lauren's face, and a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, man. And it was eating me up. I'm like, here I am. I'm supposed to be a grown man. I can't even take care of the one child I got, let alone thinking about generations from now.
Right.
And I made a decision on that floor. I made the decision. I said, okay, I'm tired of playing half-ass. I'm tired of being this, being that. You know how it is. You ever drink too much and you're hanging over the toilet? Like, God, if you just let me out of this, I'll never drink again.
Right.
That was me, man. But I said, I will never commit a crime. I will never just get me out of this some way, somehow. And I stuck to that commitment. After that, I went through the legal. It was a challenge. Went through it, got through it, and never committed another crime again. Was never never did drugs again. Yeah. And I dedicated my life at that point to entrepreneurship. It's funny because really in the end, and maybe it's my personality, I traded one addiction for a new addiction. My new addiction became personal development. My new addiction became entrepreneurship. My new addiction became how far, how fast can I climb? Yeah. Because look, I tell people all the time, when I was a drug addict, do you think I ever missed a night of getting high? Right. It's Tuesday night. I'm still getting high. It's Wednesday. I'm getting high. Friday, whatever night. I have no money. I have no job. But somehow I found a way to get high no matter what. So when people make excuses, I'm like, look, you can't make excuses to me because I know what the human mind is capable of, what we're capable of when we want something bad enough. We'll figure out a way to get it. Yes. So I somehow use that same relentless pursuit for feeding my habits, my bad habits. I just switched it to more positive, more productive habits that were going to lead me, that weren't going to make me end up in jail or dead. So, and so anyone can do it. Matter of fact, it was early on that a mentor said, look, I can teach anyone business skills. I can teach anyone business skills, but I can't teach anyone the thing that you have. And he said it was a sixth sense, street smarts type thing. So and I tell a lot of people, look, don't play yourself down. You've been through things, and that's the very thing that's probably the reason why you could surpass a lot of other people if you can stop making excuses around it.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny that you say that. Whenever I'm coaching or challenging someone, I say, all right, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad do you want it? 1 is I want it. 10 is I'm a drug addict and I got to get my next fix. Because guess what? That person will rob, they will steal, right? I mean, they're going to get it done. So when you say you're a 10, it's like, you're going to figure out a way. There's no like, well, I tried, 6, 7 different ways. It's like, no. Like the drug addict is going to get it done. So you need to figure out your way to get it done.
No matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what. And that's the thing. So if you can just be as successful as a drug addict, you can do well.
Take all the principles of a drug addict, apply it to business, and you're going to be great.
Yes.
I love it.
That is so funny, man. But it's true. It is true. Yeah. And it's just, again, it really comes down to how bad you want it. And so a lot of people talk. Yep. There's a lot of lip service around it. And for me, I just wanted it. I wanted it so bad. I wanted to be somebody so bad. And I didn't know exactly what that meant, but I knew I didn't like who I was. I didn't like the circumstance. I didn't like the neighborhood. I didn't like the people around me. I liked the people around me. I just knew that they weren't good for me. Mm-hmm. And I had to make those changes. And I just, thank God for mentors though, because people that don't get good mentors, but in the beginning, my mentors were books. They were audios. Right. It wasn't like, they weren't showing up saying, hey, John, can we mentor you? And like, if I called somebody and say, hey, would you mentor me? They would just hang up anyhow. I brought no value at all to anybody, including myself. And so it was by me studying the greats. If you go, if you see any of my libraries, you see, man, I took a lot, I put a lot of effort into learning. What did they do? Because when I heard from a mentor, when he said, if another man can do it, if another woman can do it, then you can do it. Find out what they did and then do exactly what they did until you have what they have. And he said that was in every area of life. So when I wanted to, be better in my spiritual walk, well, it's pretty simple. There's tons of people out there that are really, really good in that area. My business, and I found tons of people in business that really had it down. And I just started studying them, man. And then we called it rob and duplicate. I just took their stuff and did what they did. And I just kept doing it until we started to have some real success. And then later, they called me lucky. It was funny after, we had a couple good hits. It was like, oh yeah, he got lucky. I'm like, oh man, while you were at the beach, while you were in the nightclub, I was in a book or I was hustling. I was figuring out a way. And but now I'm lucky. I'm like, damn, man, it didn't feel very lucky going through the process.
Yeah. Well, so, all right, we're out and we've committed. Hey, I want to become successful. I know entrepreneur and business is going to be my thing. And this is where it just takes off, right? I mean, in first year you come out swinging, you make a couple $1,000,000, not quite. It takes one, or
Wow.
year one is $4,000 of income. Year two is $16,000 of income, and it takes 7 years to get to six
Wow.
figures of income.
You did do your homework, bro.
How,
I'm impressed.
how do you keep going? I mean, let's be honest. How many people have we all seen join some organization, join something, and they don't get to six
Yep.
figures in 6 months? And it's like, I'm done. It's just not the right fit. What was it about you, John, that just kept going?
Man, first off, that first year, the ridicule, the laughter, it was brutal. It was bad. There were so many times I'm in the bed in the fetal position, sucking my thumb, like, what am I doing? This isn't working. I
Right.
suck. And this is never gonna work. And they all think I'm crazy and whatever. And I watched so many people over that 7 year period. I watched so many people start stuff and never finish. There's a lot of great starters. They just don't stick to anything.
Yep.
Even in my business today, we got a lot of people in the business that they're kind of in the business, but they ain't gonna do anything.
Right.
And then they'll later on probably make excuses of why it doesn't
course.
work or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I don't know why that is, but it got to a point where there just was no other option for me. Like, I didn't have a lot of options. I think part of the problem is there's so much stuff out there now. So people start to become like the jack of all trades, or they hear these motivational speakers talk about multiple income streams. And I say, yeah, I get that, but you have multiple income trickles. There's no damn stream. You got a bunch of trickles. You're making just enough to be frustrated. You're posting pictures of someone else's car on your social media. You got on someone's yacht in Miami, and everyone's a baller now. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
It's false flagging. It's not real, but we've got tools now that can make us feel like we're something, even if we're not accomplishing anything. See, when I was coming up, we didn't have that. I couldn't post I couldn't do stuff to make me feel better. Instagram didn't exist. It wasn't there.
Yeah.
It was like, I got to grind, man. But here's what happened. That from 4,000 to 16,000 that second year, in my head, I was like, wait a minute. I know that's a big percentage. It's not a big number. Still tough to feed my family,
Yes.
but I caught on the percentage of growth. Because if you got a raise on your job, that big of a percentage, you'd be,
yeah, 4X, you're gonna be happy. Hell
you're
yeah.
gonna be going, yeah, man, that's a big deal. So I'm like, okay, if I can keep this up, it's gonna be game over.
I love it.
But it took the challenge was it was that 7th year though. The 7th year was my big breakthrough. That 7th year when I finally cracked 6 figures, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then the next year it went to over 200 and went, 116, then over 200,000. Then, the next thing you know, we got, $250,000 a month residual income coming in. It's like, I couldn't do no wrong. It was like, but there was a price to pay for that. Most people, I don't know. I mean, I just had big reasons why, man. When the why is big enough, you figure out how to get shit done.
Bingo, rewind, listen to that twice. Dude, that's great. So I want to go through something there though.
Yeah.
And was there anything you changed in what you were doing or how you were doing that was the jump in that 7th year or from 7 to 8? Because sometimes it is just continuously doing the same thing. Other times it's, all right, I got the habits down doing this, but also as the famous book says, what got me here won't get me there. I got to make some changes to go from 100 to 200, 200 to 500, right? So were there any things in your process that really changed up or that you started doing differently?
Well, I caught on to this concept of scaling or back, we called it duplicating back then. That's why I always talk about rob and duplicate. Yeah. But about scaling, I caught on that it wasn't the money that I wanted. What I really wanted was freedom.
Yes.
Because I during that time frame, I met a lot of people that had money, but they really weren't free. You know what I mean? It was like they were working still and they were stuck. They were forced. They couldn't get out of it. The company was so big. The responsibility was so big. They weren't free. Then on the other side, I had friends that had no money, but lots of time. Yep. They weren't free either. They really couldn't do anything but, hang out on the porch and drink 40 ounces.
Yeah.
So for me, what I call what got me through that whole thing, number one, is personal development, because I'm prone to negativity. I'm prone to bad behavior. I'm prone to depression, things like that. So I had to constantly be filling my mind with good stuff. And that was number one.
Yeah.
And then we mastered the mundane. We mastered the mundane. I got good at doing the same boring thing over, nothing fancy. I didn't have no fancy footwork, any of that. I just did the same thing over and over and over. And the reason why is because I caught on, I could get that to duplicate. I could teach someone else. Like, I see a lot of these guys, man, they're like swans on the lake. They're beautiful. They got all these fancy footwork. They articulate everything. It's like, honey flowing off their tongues. And for me, I'm like, good luck duplicating that. Good luck making that scale. So I was like, I wanted to dumb everything down. We got better and better, because at first I thought I had to be somebody different. So, I stiffened up, I changed my voice, and, I gave myself a title. I'm a liaison, and I got, this weird shit. And I'm like, and that wasn't working so well. When I finally caught on to something, we teach it now in social media, be authentic. It's crazy we have to teach this crap.
Right.
When I finally was like, all right, I had a mentor said, most of these people that you care about what they think, they won't even show up at your funeral. And half of them that do, they won't even cry at your funeral. And if it rains, they won't make it from the funeral home to the burial. So what do you care so much? And I finally, I'll tell you what, the day when I finally gave up on caring what you think, I don't want to offend you in any way, but look, I can't. Les Brown said it best. He said, what you think about me is none of my spiritual business.
Yep.
When that really became my reality, man, I was finally free.
Yes.
I was finally free. Could care less. Like, if I'm on here, I could have something hanging off my mouth, my zipper could be open, whatever. I like, all right, it's just, it's just me. John.malott's a mess. That's, get it, don't, whatever. I'm rolling though. I'm going to keep moving.
I love it.
That was more free than any of the money, the time, freedom that I had, all that, when I stopped giving a crap what you thought about me or anybody thought about me.
Absolutely.
And, man, that was real freedom.
Well, something I think, I'd like to highlight for you that I just found so attractive about your story is just to your point, authenticity, but transparency of it, right? I think sometimes people are trying to cover up certain things that have happened in their life, or they try and massage it to make it sound differently. And it's like, well, no, like, I mean, it happened. Yeah, it sucks, right? Like, a good friend of mine, he got fired from his job and then ended up starting a new company, and it went way better. And in the beginning, he would say, oh, it didn't go well, or like, I left and whatnot. And then he's like, you know what? The truth of the story is I got fired. And guess what? I needed that so I could start my own, damn company. And it's like, there you go. And there's something attractive about just the transparency and, like you said, authenticity.
Yeah, we're too busy trying to impress people. And the funny thing about today's age is that no matter what you do, half the people are going to hate you anyways. It's just the way it's set up. Half the people are going to try to cancel you just for opening your mouth. So it's like, all right, I just don't have time.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep rolling. I'm going to do what's best for what I think is best for me and my family. I have my priorities straight. I know what comes first in my life. I know second, third, fourth. I've got it mapped out. I know where I'm going. Which a lot of people, I think part of their problem is they don't really know where they're going. I never forget, I got what they call a central office suspension, which basically meant I could not go to any more public schools in that city. I was suspended from all public schools in our city. And when that happens, they send a big packet from all the people you had interactions with in the school system. Some of these people I don't even know who the hell they were, but some of them I knew. And I'll never forget my dad reading through it. He's like, John, you're a ship without a rudder. It's like, because someone wrote that I'm a ship without a rudder. And I'm like, yeah. And now I see so many people are like ships without rudders. Like they're just bouncing around. Right. They're waiting for their stimulus check to show up. They're waiting for the government to do this. They're waiting for this to happen. Probably buying lottery tickets. I mean, that's a tough way to go. I live my life on purpose. I know exactly where I'm going. I have a company right now that is, it energizes me. I wake up in the morning ready to go crush it, ready to go change some lives, ready to go make some millions for myself. But the way our system is set up, it's automatically going to make millions for other people. So I wake up with a smile and the morale. Anyway, so it's a cool deal.
I love it. I love that. And now you started talking about, all right, as my business started taking off, it created cash flow for me, which created opportunities to invest in other businesses and take on other opportunities. And so Carlton Sheets and yourself connect and you get into some real estate.
Carlton Sheets. That's funny because yeah, I was his neighbor in St. Charles, and I had bought his programs. No money down, real estate. So yeah, that was that man. That's funny because that was such a big. That was another big turning point in business for me because
Yeah.
I was reading about Trammell Crow, Donald Trump. I was reading about these real estate magnates.
Yes.
And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a real estate magnate. I'm going to make all this money. And the funny thing is, I didn't have any credit. I couldn't speak well, but I bought Carlton Sheets. It was an infomercial that played on television, and I bought his program, no money down, real estate fortunes, whatever. And I followed it to the letter, and I didn't do very well. People laughed at me most of the time. But then I met a guy by the name of Jerry Klamrowski. I'll never forget him. Matter of fact, now it makes me want to reach out to him.
Yeah.
Jerry had an ad in the newspaper. Jerry had all of these, what I call ghetto properties. They were everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
they were in some places where if you're going to collect rent, you better have a gun with you and some bodyguards. But Jerry hooked it up, man. He worked it out. He wanted rid of those properties. He didn't want the headaches anymore. And he found a guy who was willing to do whatever. And that first year, connected Jerry, I think I ended up owning, man, I must have been somewhere between 15 and 25, everything from duplexes to 8 families.
Wow.
In these, they were big cash flow business. And we did it all with no money down. It was all creative. He got me a connection at the bank, his connection. And we did these creative. Part of the reason why the real estate market collapsed is I think we contributed to that problem. Like the stuff that was happening, we were buying properties and getting money back at closing. You had I'm just being transparent. We had appraisers that whatever we needed it to appraise to, we would just tell the appraiser we needed to appraise for this, and they would come back and it would appraise for that. I mean, it was a different time.
Yeah.
It was bad. But it was the way the game was played. I was new to the whole thing.
Right.
But that gave me a foundation. Eventually I got tired of it. And so it's funny because I brought in a partner who was from England.
Yeah.
Ed Rath. My brother, Ed Rath. Ed didn't even own a home, but he was an English gentleman. He was in his 40s. I'm in my 20s. And when we would go to the bank, they would talk to Ed. Ed don't know shit. I was the one that was coming up with trying to come up with these deals. They wouldn't even look at me or talk to me, but they would talk to Ed, and he would, his English accent.
Yeah.
And he's well dressed. He's all proper. And I'm just there like this world is interesting to me. And we ended up buying Ed and I ended up buying, it just went, we exploded. But eventually I got tired of the real estate game. It's, everybody, their grandmother goes into it everybody does it at some point.
Yep.
It is what it is. And, I was just tired of it. And eventually Ed ended up buying me out right before everything collapsed. Now, I didn't have a crystal ball. I just was tired of it, to be honest. And,
right.
And I was glad. And I had lots of cash flow. When the economy collapsed, I was flush with cash. So I was able to go buy, $1 million house on top of Camelback Mountain. I was buying beach houses. I was the shit that people couldn't afford anymore, didn't want. I was buying for pennies on the dollar because
right.
I was flush with cash, and that helped, of course, increase my wealth. And then we went into another boom time, which we've been in for a long, long time. Sooner or later, we're gonna have another one of those.
Yep.
And the people who haven't blown all their money on Lamborghinis and depreciating assets that they'll be trying to get rid of for pennies on the dollar, I'll be there to help take things off of their hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll pass those on to our children's children.
I love it. So as you've had these different business experiences, I think something that you said earlier that I just want to correlate in is, a lot of principles you were learning in the drug game, right, in an early age, end up being principles that you would use in normal business as well, right? It's just you're using it for something that is legal versus something that's an illegal business. And, I think once again, in the moment, right, when you're 15, 17, 20, you didn't realize that, hey, this is going to be important, things to learn or know later, but it is.
Oh yeah, it is. It is. I'll tell you, one of the big things was staying in the game.
Yeah.
It was tough to knock me out of anything. I would hold on to, and I'm a loyal dude because I came from a neighborhood where we had to wear our hat to a certain side. We had to wear certain colors, and we had rivals that did just the opposite, and you would be in bigger trouble if you deviated from that. If my hat went straight instead of to the left, and our neighborhood found out, I couldn't even be in my neighborhood anymore. So it was a weird loyalty, but
yeah.
I caught on how important loyalty is, and that
Right.
and it's carried over sometimes to a detriment. But in the end, I shouldn't say that's a detriment, because I think even sometimes you get smacked for doing the right thing. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do the right thing again. Because I hear people say, "I'll never do that again." I'm saying, well, you just had the wrong people around you, or
Bingo.
these people didn't get it.
Yep.
So loyalty, relentless pursuit of a goal,
Yeah.
that type of thing. When I finally, started figuring out I could write down goals, and actually I can make those things reality. that was a major game changer.
Yeah.
Like I could write this down, and and this would happen. I could go back. It's funny. We used to do the dream boards, still do them from time, like especially with my kids. And when I would go back to dream boards, I'm like, dang, I'm living in that house. I've got that car. It's like this stuff really freaking works.
Yeah.
And if more people understood that the circumstances they're in right now, they really could change. Write some goals down, start putting some little steps together. I was taught the slight edge early on, simple disciplines every day, these little things that don't seem like much in the act of doing them, like reading 15 pages today, not a big deal, but do that for a year. You just separate yourself from 90% of the planet.
For sure.
And that's the kind of stuff that we got good at. Just little disciplines every day, instead of the way it was in my life before, was simple errors in judgment that we were doing every day. I was, smoking. I was doing just little things, not that big of a deal in that particular day, but the combination over a period of time was messing up my life.
You bet. So I think something that you're pointing out, the simple disciplines, I'm sure you learned some of these from some mentors, and you hinted at it earlier, but I want to emphasize it now. Inside of your company, you get the opportunity to have mentors like Paul J. Meyer and Jim Rohn. I mean, two people that, as you say the names, most people are like, I know those people. So talk a little bit about, one, how you got connected with those folks, and some of the, maybe moments that stick out of being, mentored by them.
Yeah, man. Well, look, nobody would give me a job. And I have a major problem with the way our society is. You could pay your price, go to prison, whatever. You paid the price.
Yep.
You're now free, supposedly.
Right.
You can't get a job. No one will hire you. You can't vote. You can't do all the things everybody else can do. You're looked at cross-eyed all the time. And it's annoying. And we've actually created a system that makes criminals stay criminals. We don't have any rehabilitation for criminals. What are you going to do if you don't accidentally get a guy by the name of Dave in a drug rehab, and all these little pieces that happen in my life that in a lot of ways, people call it luck, whatever, but I was blessed, the timing was right. A lot of people didn't get that. Tons of people from my neighborhood for sure didn't get that. And some of them are dead. Some of them are in prison. Some of them are just miserable at 50 years old. So what do you do? So for me, network marketing didn't give a shit, didn't care about my background, didn't care about none of this stuff. It was a $600 entry fee. So from a business standpoint, not many businesses you can start for $600.
Right.
Like I hear people say, "Oh, network marketing's a scam. It's a pyramid." I'm like, look, bro, show me someone who lost their house over a $600 investment. I can show you a lot of people that lost stuff because of real estate investments, crypto investments, stock investment, all of that stuff. But the only people get mad because they didn't do shit. And of course it didn't work. Well, you didn't do anything. It's not a damn lottery. Yeah. And so for me, I didn't even know what network marketing was. All I knew is that these guys were super nice. And they basically said, if you do the work, you're going to get paid. And I did the work, and eventually I got paid. Yep. It was like any other business. It was rough in the beginning because I wasn't ready. I was still figuring shit out. Yeah. And Jim Rohn had an incentive because he got an override from me. So why would he mentor me? Well, because he got paid to do that. Paul J. Meyer, he got an override. There was an incentive for him, so if I brought value and here's what I caught on. The more value I brought, the better I did, the closer I got to these guys. The more interested. Next thing you know, I'm being invited to Paul J. Meyer's house. I'm being invited to this massive palace in the Cayman Islands.
Yep.
I'm like, this is crazy. And so I got around incredible men, but I had to earn my way to the table. And that's what people don't get. I got these mentors because I earned my way to the table. Yep. I was willing to take all the shit from people, all the negativity. Oh, it's a scam. It don't work. It's a pyramid, all this stuff. And then I realized these people have no idea because they never did it. They never even tried it. They just heard somebody failed and that became their reality. And now I hear people I hear big entrepreneurs sometimes do it. And I'm like, they're what I call entrepreneur supremacists. You know what I mean? Somehow your hustle is better than my hustle. Right. It's like, get out of here, bro. That's what every prejudice is built upon.
Yep.
Where else could I go turn $600 into, I don't know, 30, 40 million?
Right.
Show me a better return on investment. Now, of course, I had to put the time in.
Yep.
I had to learn leadership. I had to learn scaling. I had to learn marketing. I had to learn accounting. All these things I learned in that business from incredible mentors that had an incentive to do it because if I did well, they ultimately did well. I thought it was the purest form of business. I thought everybody would do this. I said, everybody's going to do this. This is the best kept secret on the planet. But most people, shun it. And I think, look, companies, why a big company wouldn't want you to do it because
takes away from their pockets. Yeah.
If you become something, if you become entrepreneur, if you break free of their chains, well, what are they going to do, man? It's like, so I would say that was the ultimate pyramid. I was a janitor for General Electric, and Jack Welch, he sat on the top of that pyramid scheme.
Right.
Nobody was taking his position. I can guarantee you that. And then everybody else was here. And it was just I was sub-pyramid, if anything. I'm a janitor at General Electric rolling around with my garbage can. It was, and people were saying, well, you got a good job. I'm like, get out of here.
Yeah.
And I suffered though, man. I suffered at the hands of ridicule, just people, and mainly ignorance. I caught on very, very quickly. It was just a lot of ignorant people just didn't get it, didn't understand.
So something I want to ask you about, because I think this is something that trips up a lot of people that are either looking into starting a business or it could be a new opportunity. It could be a new relationship, is that they listen to their close people and they expect that their close people are going to support whatever they do. But oftentimes your close people, they're trying to protect you. And by protect you, it sometimes puts a cage around you, right? It limits your upward mobility. Yeah. So how would you say, for anyone listening, hey, I'm thinking about doing X, Y, and Z, but the people in my life, that are close to me aren't necessarily supporting me, but I truly believe it's a good thing, right? It's one thing if it's just a bad idea, right? I mean, sometimes you got to listen to people, but if it's truly a good thing, I'm starting a business. How do you separate that and not get caught up in just what your immediate circle is saying?
It's funny because I have a saying that I say a lot now, that you stop asking rich people for money and broke people for advice.
Yes.
Usually the people around us that are closest to us, maybe unless you were born in the house with the Rolls Royce in the garage and your family's super rich, then but most people are getting advice from people just like them that are in their circles.
Yep.
I was getting advice from people even in worse shape than me. So I was broke. I was about to be broker or the broke-est by listening to these people. In the book Think and Grow Rich, I think they sum it up best. Why is it that so few have so much and so many have so little? Well, the number one reason is because the masses listen to family and friends. The very people. Now, I don't think that people are doing this to hurt you necessarily.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I used to race BMX bikes and I'm in the alley jumping garbage cans. We're building these makeshift ramps and seeing if we can get 15, 20 garbage cans. We just go crazy. And I'll never forget, my mom would show up every now and then and she would like, stop, you can't do, and they'll start. But when my kids were coming up, I'll put them on a BMX bike, said, yeah, ride down the stairs. I'm like, the only way you're going to find out what you're made of is you got to go do it. I had a different philosophy.
Yeah.
But I understood why my mom didn't want me to do it, because she didn't want me to, do what I end up ultimately doing, breaking bones, concussions, stitches, all that stuff. But that's the only way to get to the next level, because they love you. They don't want to see you fail, because failure is painful on the people that love you.
Yep.
But if I don't fail, I can't figure out the lesson to get to the next level in my life. And that was the big deal.
That's good.
But and yeah, it's like, of course, I heard from my dad over and over, 90% of businesses fail. So when I was set out to be an entrepreneur, all I heard was, it's not going to work. People fail. Entrepreneurs fail. They show up with statistics and stuff. I was like,
yeah.
Oh well, I'm not.
I'll be the 10% then. I'm not going to be the 90 that fails.
That's it. I was just cocky enough at a certain point to believe, okay, I'm going to do it. And then when I read the book, Think and Grow Rich, and it confirmed the reason why the people closest to me were talking so much shit.
Yep.
Because they're supposed to. That's what they're supposed to do. That means I'm actually doing what I'm supposed to do. Yep. If the masses are going one way, then John.malott would do himself a favor to go the opposite way. And that started to resonate in my life. When I saw everybody, when I see everybody jumping on whatever it is, and I'm not, crypto, I got investments in crypto, but I see, just to point that out, because it seems like now, because it's at 57,000 or whatever it is, everybody's and their grandmother's now a crypto expert again.
Yep.
Well, we saw what happened when it went to 20 and it bounced back to 3,000. We heard crickets. All those experts got flushed out of the system.
Yep.
My guess is, and I'm no financial, genius by any means. My guess is there will be a time when we will see the bull market come to a screeching halt. Absolutely. And we'll hear crickets again. Because right now, throw a dart at a stock sheet or at a crypto coin sheet and invest, and you're going to make money. It's something about the human mind. We think we're freaking brilliant. Like, I made 10 grand today. You must be brilliant.
Right. Yeah.
Until you lose 20. It's like the people that go to Vegas.
Yes.
And they say, "Oh, I'm a big winner in Vegas," but they don't tell you about all the times they went.
Only the one time they won. Yeah. Only the one time they won.
You only hear about that one time, man. That one horse that did it. Now they're horse race experts. I'm like, oh,
I love that. Bro. That's amazing.
For me, it was just consistent. For me, it was consistent, man. It was little things over and over. And I like simplicity. Mm-hmm. I like stuff simple. I like things that I believe are going to last a long time. That's why, for me, health and wellness is simple. There's a lot of people in that space, but it's going to be around forever. We're coming out of a pandemic, so people are more concerned about their health and immunity and all that stuff. So I like to play where I believe the opportunity is growing and going. Yep. And without a lot of speculation and without, having to learn, too much. Simple duplicates, simple scales. Yep. And that's what I like.
I love that. That's awesome. Now, something you mentioned earlier, and I wanted to point out was that, you've co-authored a book with Les Brown. How the heck did that come about? Not everyone gets to do that. That's a pretty prominent individual.
Oh, it's fun. It's a terrible book. Well, his part is great. Mine sucks so bad. I tell people, if you want it, I'll send it to you. You can use it for fire kindling.
You're sending me a copy. I'm gonna promote the heck out of that thing. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Just don't share it with anybody. Don't subject people to that nonsense.
I'm putting a link down below when we post this. I'm putting a link down below to buy it.
Yeah, thank God you can't buy it on Amazon anymore. It was a long time ago. But what's funny, because like Jim Rohn would say, life demands progression. It's the reason they make the kindergarten chairs so small. We're supposed to. So you should look back and say the things that I did then are look at what you wore in the 80s. Like I look back at some of the stuff I wore in the 80s, like, oh, what the heck were we thinking in the 80s? And hopefully we advance, we move forward. And that's kind of what happened. And it was, at that time, it was a privilege. It was a company that hit me up. I was just starting to get some traction. Yeah. Things were just starting to happen. And this company hit me up and said, hey, we're featuring 5 entrepreneurs with Les Brown in this book called The Power One. And somebody was courageous enough to say my name. And
that's so cool.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm in. And I dropped out of school. I'm not a good writer. It's not my thing. I said, well, how does this work? Because I can't write shit. And they said, oh, no problem. We're going to interview you. And they interviewed me. And I have a whole chapter in this book, maybe 2 chapters. I don't remember what it is. Maybe, whatever. It's like, there's like 5 of us and Les Brown. So,
well, once you send it to me, I'll read it. I'll let you know how many chapters you have.
Yeah, let me know. Because I don't even want to open it ever again. But I have them around the house somewhere.
I love it. That's awesome. Now, for sake of time, I know you got things going on, but I got two things I want to talk about. One's a question, and then one is your newest venture that you're on with the opioid, fighting company. Obviously, something near and dear to you, just from your upbringing, your familial ties to it. But talk a little bit about what you're doing there. I think it's really neat.
Yeah, so I'm an investor in a company called Metapure. By the way, keep an eye on it. We should list on the Toronto Stock Exchange in Canada, hopefully within the next 60 days, 90 days, maybe. I lost my sister to heroin. My brother became a heroin addict, but started from opioids. And heroin's just easier to get. In some cases, less expensive. But anyway, so we've invested in a company called Metapure, and Metapure is basically making it's a pharmaceutical company. They're making drugs to curb the opioid. One of the main areas is to curb the opioid, to create pain relievers that are based on the cannabinoid system inside of our body. Now, when I say cannabis or cannabis, we think marijuana immediately. There's a cannabinoid system that if tapped into properly inside of your body, can relieve pain. There's all kinds of things that can happen. You hear people talk about it a little bit when they get into CBD and some of the benefits of CBD, but that's not a CBD company, and we're not a cannabis company. We're a company making actual pharmaceutical drugs that will require a prescription. But the beauty of it is they absorb faster. They don't have the addictive properties. And so there's all these different pieces that, like against oxycodone, Vicodin, all these drugs that have wreaked havoc on our society. So that was a big deal. We've been involved in that for about 4 years. I'm not involved in the day-to-day operations. I'm an investor there. I try now to invest in impact companies and in putting my money where I believe it's going to make an impact on society. And that's a big one that's close to my heart. So anyways, awesome. We're about to go public. I believe it's going to hit hard when we do go public. The world's going to see we've got these clinical studies, and there's also drugs around psoriasis, and because people are putting steroids and they're dealing with these terrible skin conditions. There's some things you can do that don't have the side effects. So anyway, all that's coming. That's one of our big projects. I got investments in quite a few companies, but that's one we're extremely proud of. And then my main focus is our new health and wellness company that they were courageous enough to make me the CEO of.
Ooh, let's go.
So, yeah, that one I'm involved in day to day. And after I turned 50, I was like, I want to live a long time, man. I have a responsibility to the people that care about me. There's something, who's the dude from Matrix?
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. I saw an interview with Keanu one time, and I can't remember who was interviewing. What a talk show. But anyhow, the guy asked him, what do you think happens after you die? And Keanu had the best answer I ever heard. He said, I believe that the people that care about you the most will be very sad. I mean, that about sums it up. We don't really know what's going to happen after you die, but we know for sure there's going to be some people very sad. Yeah. And I thought about that. I'm like, you know what? For the people that care about me, it's my responsibility to do everything I can to live a healthier life, to be the example, to have energy. I got 4 daughters. I want to have energy. I still want to go to Disney World. I still want to ride roller coasters. I want to bungee jump and do crazy shit still. Yeah. Why? I think people start slowing down at a certain point, and I don't understand why. I think you should be picking up speed.
I love it.
You should really be living. Don't sit in that rocking chair for too long, because you will rock yourself to death. You know what I'm saying?
Fact. Yes, absolutely.
I want to roll, man. There's a lot of the world I want to see. Yeah. I want to create a fortune that I can spend, and maybe give some to my kids, maybe not, we'll see.
I love it. So the last question I have for you today is this. And so I heard this idea a few years back, and it's been really something I've tried to really focus and harness in on, but I always appreciate hearing other successful people's mindset and thoughts behind it. And so the phrase is blissful dissatisfaction. Okay. So it's the idea that some people, they set a goal, and when they reach their goal, they stay on that plateau. It's like, hey, I hit my goal. I'm good to go now. I'm just going to maintain here. And then there's other people, John, like I would say you and I, where it's like, our problem is the exact opposite. Every time I hit a goal, I'm already on to the next goal. And I never take any time to look back and be like, holy cow, I've accomplished some really cool things, because I'm always trying to do the next thing.
Yeah.
So how in your life do you try and balance that of having some satisfaction when you hit a goal, but yet not losing your desire to attain the next one?
Man, that's, yeah. So it's funny how, say that again. What do you call it?
Blissful dissatisfaction.
But yeah, because I used to say happily discontent. So basically
Okay.
the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happily discontent. I'm pretty damn happy, but I just never feel like I made it. You know, I've hit
Yeah.
some pretty, by most standards, some pretty incredible goals, but to me, they were the setup for the next thing. I just feel like to live a purpose-driven life, you got to figure out what you're doing. And I think that's what happens. Like some people you hear, like if you're Michael Jordan and you hit where do you go from there?
Yeah. Right.
You know, I've heard stories about, alcoholism, you hear all kinds of stuff, and you see people that have hit but they're like, there was nothing after that. There's nothing after
Right.
that. And that's I think that scares me a little bit. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there. So that's why, I'm not Michael Jordan. So, I got a long way to go to hit, the top of the beauty of the entrepreneurship game. There's always someone faster, smarter, brighter, richer, whatever. It's very, very like Elon Musk, man. I mean, to do like it's gonna be tough for me to catch Elon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or Steve Cook or any of these guys. That's not my goal. My goal is just progression.
Yep.
To keep moving. I just love it. The blissful, happily discontent. I just keep progressing, man. Figure out where you want to go. Stop comparing yourself to everybody else. That was, for me, a big deal. And everybody wants to be a big baller, man. Everybody, wants to be the baddest dude in the club, the biggest, biggest rims on the Rolls Royce type stuff. And I'm just like, I'm gonna keep moving. I'm gonna keep going forward, and we'll, when it's over, let whoever gets the inheritance count the chips and see where I ended up in this game.
I love it. That's phenomenal. Well, John, I appreciate the time today. Your story is phenomenal. Your energy is equally as good. But no, all the amazing things that you're doing for others inside your business and creating wealth for them on top of your own wealth. It's awesome to see. And like I said, one, you're sending me that book, but two, we'll have you back on in a couple of years and we'll see what else is cooking then.
Absolutely, brother. Keep doing this, man. This stuff, I wish this would have been available when I was coming up, man. The access to information changes the game. So keep crushing it, brother. Appreciate you.